The police asked Lizzie if she knew anyone who might have killed her mother and father. "She is not my mother, sir," Lizzie responded.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're looking at women who committed the most heinous acts in history.
Can't remember anything.
Jane Toppan. When your goal is to outkill every murderer in history, then you're not just dangerous, you're evil personified. That essentially summarizes this evil nurse.
Jane Toppan, America's most prolific female serial killer, killed just to see the life drain out of her victims' eyes.
Born Honora Kelly in Boston, 1854, Jane Toppan was initially known as Jolly Jane for her bright and friendly demeanor. But behind this pleasant personality was a very disturbed woman. Between 1895 and 1901, she's believed to have killed over 100 people, using her position in hospitals to experiment on patients. Dubbed the Angel of Mercy, she preyed on the vulnerable and derived some twisted thrill from watching their final moments.
She was finally brought to justice in 1901. After she killed off the entire Davis family of Calumet, Massachusetts.
By 1902, she confessed to 31 murders. She was declared insane the same year and committed to a mental health facility where she remained until her death.
Toppan was found not guilty by reason of insanity and spent the rest of her life in a mental hospital.
Darya Nikolaevna Saltykova. Rich, powerful, and distinctly lacking in empathy, the Saltykova heiress wasn't just a killer, she was a sadist. The noble woman was notorious for her vile treatment of her serfs, many of whom didn't live to see justice done. You see, Saltykova was highly connected with the higher-ups in the Russian court and evaded investigation until the death tally grew too big to ignore. And when we say too big, we mean she has a proven body count of around 38 and is suspiciously linked to nearly 100 more. Based on those numbers, there's no telling how much damage she could have wrought if she hadn't been caught. Klara Mauerova, also known as the cannibal mother of Kujim, Klara Mauerova subjected her own children to the worst form of torture. A member of a religious cult, Klara and her sister Katarina were manipulated by Barbara Shklova. This nightmare lasted nearly a year until in 2007 when a neighbor's baby monitor picked up a signal of the abuse. Authorities stepped in, and Klara, her sister, and other cult members were imprisoned. Shockingly, Barbara, an adult woman posing as a child, appealed and later walked free. Maria Swanenburg, one of history's most prolific poisoners, Maria Swanenburg was known to her neighbors in the Netherlands as Good Mich. She had a reputation for caring for the sick, the poor, and elderly, but she was anything but good. Behind this generosity was a woman who had a penchant for poisoning with arsenic and a hunger for money. Her mother was her first victim, and her father soon followed, all for insurance payouts. Swanenburg is believed to have poisoned at least 102 people, with 27 confirmed deaths. Heartbreakingly, 16 of those were her own relatives. She was eventually caught in 1883 after attempting to poison an entire family. Sentenced to life in a correctional facility, she died behind bars. Another example of a wolf in sheep's clothing. Ranavalona I. Many know of Adolf Hitler and Joseph Stalin, names linked to tyranny and mass deaths, but few have heard of Ranavalona, the 19th century queen of Madagascar, whose reign was equally brutal. For 33 years, Ranavalona ruled with an iron fist, starting off with the executions of her rivals. Her rule was marked by slavery, isolation, ruthless purges, and a total rejection of foreign influence. Christians were tortured, enslaved, and even executed for their faith. One of her most cruel methods? The Tangana trial, a deadly poison test where survival meant innocence. It's estimated that up to 2.5 million people died under her reign, a massive chunk of Madagascar's population at that time. Despite the terror she was, Ranavalona died in her sleep. Miyuki Ishikawa. When someone evil is in a delicate position, the consequences are bound to be devastating. Japan was reeling from poverty and the aftermath of war when Miyuki Ishikawa worked at a maternity hospital. Faced with an influx of children born to poor unwed mothers, she devised a means to solve the problem. Her twisted solution? Letting numerous infants die from neglect and starvation. Even more disturbing, sometimes Ishikawa demanded payments from desperate parents in exchange for this deadly help. The exact number of her victims remains unknown since she operated undetected for years. Arrested in 1948, Ishikawa was handed a light sentence of 8 years, which was later reduced to 4. Even worse, Ishikawa wasn't the only midwife committing this evil act. Isabella of Castile. Isabella the Catholic is often remembered for unifying Spain and funding Christopher Columbus's famous voyage, but her legacy has a much darker side. Isabella and her husband Ferdinand of Aragon worked together to make Spain a unified Catholic country. To do that, they launched the Spanish Inquisition, a harsh system where anyone who wasn't seen as a true Catholic was punished, especially Jewish people and Muslims. In 1492, she also forced Jewish people to either convert or leave Spain, causing many to lose their homes and livelihoods. So while Isabella might be a great queen, she's also a ruler who used religion as a weapon to hurt others. Katherine Knight. This violent woman was the first woman in Australian history to receive a life sentence without parole.
A woman driven to kill in a way that defies comprehension.
Once you hear what she did, it's easy to understand why. Katherine Knight's life was steeped in violence right from the start, and her relationships were just as toxic. She abused her husband, and at one point, even killed her lover's puppy in front of him. But the worst happened in 2000 when she murdered her lover, John Price. When she was arrested, Knight showed no remorse. Her crime was so disturbing, a judge described it as, quote, appalling, and she was locked away for good.
This was as bad a case as you got, so she had to go to jail for the term of her life.
Beverly Allitt. Beverly Allitt started with babysitting gigs, became a nurse, and then turned into one of Britain's most chilling child killers.
A chilling pattern had emerged from the collapse of 13 children, 4 of whom had died.
Working at Grantham and Kesteven Hospital, Allitt earned the nickname the Angel of Death after a horrifying spree in 1991. Over a period of 59 days, 4 children were killed and 9 were injured, all under her care. Her method of operation was injecting children with insulin or air, leading to heart failures or death.
She's succeeded in convincing people that she's so caring, why would anyone suspect her?
One suspicious death raised flags, and Allitt's horrifying pattern was uncovered. How no one noticed sooner still haunts many. Convicted in 1993 of 4 murders, 3 attempted murders, and 6 grievous bodily harms, she received 13 life sentences. She remains locked in a high-security psychiatric facility.
Even after sentence, when she was seen at Brampton Hospital, not once has she ever expressed any remorse for what she's done.
Aileen Wuornos. Abandoned as a child and exposed to trauma throughout her youth, Aileen Wuornos' life was tragic right from the very beginning. Without stable shelter, she lived on the margins of society, often relying on sex work to survive. Between 1989 and 1990, Wuornos killed 7 men, which she later claimed were acts of self-defense.
We do know that he was shot multiple times and his victim was found in a secluded area.
Some saw her as a victim of a cruel world, but prosecutors argued her actions were calculated and motivated by personal gain. In 1992, she was convicted and received death sentences.
On January the 27th, 1992, Aileen Wuornos was found guilty of the murder of Richard Mallory.
In 2002, she was executed by lethal injection. Her cryptic final words left a lasting impression, and her erratic behavior during her trial drew national attention.
By November 1992, Wuornos had been given a total of 6 death sentences.
Catherine de' Medici.
Oh my God, Catherine!
Serving as the Queen of France from 1547 to 1559, Catherine de' Medici had enormous political sway over her sons, the French kings Francis II, Charles IX, and Henry III. They reigned through the French Wars of Religion and faced problems with a group of Calvinist Protestants called the Huguenots. It is widely believed by historians that de' Medici attempted to have their leader, Gaspard II de Coligny, assassinated. The attempt failed, and fearing retaliation from the most powerful Huguenots, de' Medici planned to kill them all before they could take action. The result was the St. Bartholomew's Day massacre, which resulted in the deaths of between 5,000 and 30,000 Huguenots. Gertrude Baniszewski. A teenager named Sylvia Likens and her sister Jenny made friends with sisters Paula and Stephanie Baniszewski. When the Likens' mother was imprisoned for shoplifting, the sisters were sent to live with the Baniszewskis. Their mother, Gertrude Baniszewski, soon began a system of abuse against Sylvia Likens and forced Sylvia's sister Jenny to participate in response to the Likens' late payments for the kids' boarding and care.
Yeah, Brooke, at the trial, they called this case the single worst crime perpetuated against an individual in Indiana's history.
With the help of her children and some neighbors, Baniszewski tortured Likens for 3 months. On October 26, 1965, Likens' body effectively shut down from the severe mistreatment, and she died from a combination of injuries, shock, and malnourishment. Gertrude Baniszewski was given life in prison, but was paroled on December 4, 1985. She remained free until her death in 1990.
And to know that you're responsible for taking someone's life is real hard to live with.
Karla Homolka. One of the most infamous serial killers in Canadian history, Karla Homolka worked with her husband, Paul Bernardo, and killed 3 girls throughout the early 90s. Homolka's first victim was her own younger sister, Tammy. Just 2 days before Christmas, Tammy Homolka was drugged and assaulted by her older sister and Bernardo, and died after choking on her vomit.
Finally. Check her. Make sure.
The couple then proceeded to kidnap both Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. Both were horrifically mistreated before they were killed. After Homolka was arrested, she conned the investigators and tricked them into believing that Bernardo was primarily responsible. She testified against him and was given a very lenient sentence in return, though videotapes later revealed the extent of the atrocities in which she participated. Homolka was released from prison in 2005.
Since then, she's kept a low profile, going by the name Leanne Teal. And for the past 2 years, she has reportedly lived in this suburb south of Montreal with her husband and their 3 children.
Leonarda Cianciulli. Known as the soap maker of Correggio, Leonarda Cianciulli was a serial killer from Italy. Cianciulli was devastated after learning that her son was going off to prepare to fight in World War II. To keep him safe, Cianciulli offered human sacrifices. She killed 3 of her neighbors with an axe and made tea cakes out of their remains. Not only would Cianciulli eat these cakes, she also served them to visiting guests. Cianciulli's 3rd victim, Virginia Cacioppo, was made into both tea cakes and bars of soap.
What are we doing tonight? Tonight? We make soap. Really? To make soap, first we render fat.
Once again, this soap was gifted to friends and neighbors. Cianciulli was eventually sentenced to 30 years in prison. Myra Hindley. In January of 1961, 18-year-old Myra Hindley met a man with a criminal record named Ian Brady. The two would develop a relationship and would go on to commit what are known as the Moors murders.
27-year-old Ian Brady and 23-year-old Myra Hindley received multiple life sentences for crimes so gruesome they defied belief.
Between July 1963 and October 1965, Hindley and Brady killed 5 youths, the youngest of which was Leslie Ann Downey. They were kidnapped around the general Manchester area and forced to endure horrible acts before they were killed. 3 of the 5 victims have been found buried in England's Saddleworth Moor, leading to the name the Moors Murders.
The death penalty had been abolished only 5 months before, so an angry public knew that neither of them would be sent to the gallows.
The most evil woman in Britain was given life in prison and died of pneumonia in 2002 at the age of 60. Mary Ann Cotton. Not much is known about the criminal career of Mary Ann Cotton, who lived in the 1800s. Document keeping was not a regular practice at the time, so it's hard to get an exact measure of Cotton's crimes. But thanks to some investigative techniques, it's believed that Cotton took the lives of up to 21 people. Of these 21 victims, 3 were her husbands, and 11 were her own offspring.
Mary Ann made a bit of a living through her time killing husbands and children for personal gain. So that she is my definition of a black widow.
Cotton poisoned most of these people with arsenic and proceeded to claim their insurance policies for her own self-interest. Cotton was eventually caught after poisoning her stepson, Charles Edward Cotton, and was ordered to be executed.
When you tell people that your very healthy son is going to be dead within a week and then he does die within a week, you're going to lay yourself open to suspicions.
It's possible that Cotton was intentionally given a short rope, as it did not break her neck. Instead, she was left to strangle to death. Enriqueta Marti. This Spanish woman is often referred to as a vampire, owing to the nature of her crimes. It is generally believed that Marti kidnapped kids off the streets of Barcelona and put them to work in her brothel.
I'm going to put you right to bed when we get home.
It's also believed that Marti killed minors and used their blood and remains in various elixirs.
Tastes good.
She then sold these elixirs to the rich, claiming that they treated dangerous ailments like tuberculosis. 12 victims have been linked to Marti, although it's suspected that she killed many more. However, some historians defend Marti and argue that her crimes were not as bad or as many as the traditional story suggests. Belle Gunness. There is much about Belle Gunness that we do not know. For example, the extent of her crimes. What is known is that Gunness was a serial killer who most often targeted wealthy men looking for marriage. She would lure these men to her farm in Indiana, kill them, and take their money.
Christian Hilkven, Ole Budsberg, John Moe, George Barry, and Emil Tell were all potential suitors who arrived at the LaPorte, Indiana farm with thousands of dollars of cash in their pockets and were never heard from again.
Many young children also died under Gunness's care, some of whom carried large insurance payouts that were cashed by Gunness. Many graves were found on her property containing human remains, and it's believed that Gunness may have killed up to 40 people.
The press descended like flies upon the grisly scene, and curiosity seekers weren't far behind. An estimated 16,000 people per day visited the farm at the height of the media furor.
Gunness's fate is also shrouded in mystery. While she supposedly died in a fire, it's widely believed that she faked her death and fled town with her money. Rose West. A serial killing couple from the Gloucester area of England, Rose and Fred West killed at least 9 young women together throughout the 70s and 80s.
It was a huge shock to the people of Gloucester. The whole thing became a bit of a circus, really, as far as the press and the media interest. It was moving so quickly, there was so much happening, there were so many developments in terms of bodies being found.
After torturing these people, the Wests would kill their victims and bury their remains in their yard and basement. As a result, their house would later become known as a house of horrors. Rose West also acted independently and killed her stepdaughter through Fred in June of 1971. West was convicted of 10 homicides in 1995, and as of 2022, remains imprisoned.
She didn't appear to be upset, disturbed, angry, indignant. There was no real emotion that I can recall.
Fred West took his own life shortly after being arrested. Ilse Koch. Throughout World War II and the German occupation of Europe, Ilse Koch ran various concentration camps with her husband, Karl Otto Koch. She worked at Buchenwald from 1937 to 1941 and Majdanek from 41 to 43. Koch quickly developed a reputation for being sadistic and inhumanely cruel towards her prisoners.
And she relished in the fact that people were starving and dying all around her.
It was alleged that Koch made artifacts out of her victims' skin, but this was never proven in court. Koch subsequently became one of the first Nazis to be tried for war crimes and was given a life sentence by the US military.
The Allies took testimonies from prisoners who had lived in Buchenwald for years, and when they heard the stories of Ilse Koch, she was arrested for her crimes against humanity.
She was controversially released in 1949, but was quickly arrested by West German authorities and sent back to prison. She took her own life in 1967. Mary I of England. Daughter of the famous Henry VIII. Mary I of England became known as Bloody Mary for her widespread violence aimed against Protestants. Mary I ruled England and Ireland from 1553 to 1558 and hoped to restore Roman Catholicism following the English Reformation.
You will do everything in your power to uphold the Catholic faith. Do not take away from the people the consolations of the Blessed Virgin, their Holy Mother.
She targeted Protestants shortly after her ascension, despite promising not to do so, and many fled the country in response. Heresy laws were eventually drafted against Protestants, and hundreds were burned at the stake. While Mary I was persistent, these executions were very unpopular throughout England and festered anti-Catholic sentiments. Elizabeth I attempted to undo the damage that was caused by Mary I following her death in 1558.
I crown thee, Elizabeth, Queen of England, Ireland, and France.
Amelia Dyer. Proving one of the Victorian era's most infamous criminals, Amelia Dyer could be one of the most prolific serial killers in human history. Back in Victorian England, people were paid for adopting babies in a practice known as baby farming.
If you gave her £5 and the baby,
she would take the baby and either have it adopted out or raise it herself.
Amelia Dyer turned this into her profession and adopted numerous children. She began by keeping them for a time until they passed of natural causes, but ultimately turned to disposing of them shortly after adopting them, thereby keeping the money without having to raise them.
Saying that the child would be looked after and they'd been wanting a child for a long time and it would be loved, it would be a caring home. All these things were hitting exactly the right buttons for a young mum who, was giving a child up.
One of Dyer's victims was found floating in the River Thames on March 30th, 1896, leading to her arrest and eventual execution. While 6 victims have been confirmed, it's believed that Dyer may have killed up to 400 throughout her life. Wu Zetian. Between 665 and 690, Wu Zetian ruled China through her husband and sons. But she then made world history and became Empress Regnant in 690, making her the country's first and only official female ruler.
Not only did Wu Zetian rock the boat, in some ways she overturned it.
It would have been a very dangerous thing to get in the way of Wu Zetian.
She remained in power from 690 until her death in 705. However, her reign was filled with violence and bloodshed. Wu Zetian killed political rivals, had opponents and dissenters silenced, and launched many wars to gain territory. She built an empire and turned China into one of the world's most powerful territories. While this aspect of her reign is generally praised, Wu Zetian has long received criticism for her merciless machinations.
This is a mother killing her own son so that she can hold on to power.
Griselda Blanco. Born in Cartagena, Colombia, Griselda Blanco moved to Miami in the late 1970s and worked with the Medellin cartel to import cocaine into the United States.
Griselda entrepreneured the cocaine industry as we know it, from the jungle to the street corner to the nightclub to the household. My mother did that.
This began a very violent period in Miami's history, as the city was soon plagued with gang and drug-related violence. Hundreds were killed each year as drugs spilled into the streets and criminals vied for power. Legend states that Blanco would order her hitmen to kill everyone in a room, not just the intended victim.
She was a psychopath. She loved killing people.
As a result, the lives of many innocent people were claimed during these drug wars. One of these hitmen, Jorge Ayala, is believed to have killed roughly 40 people alone. After serving time in prison, Blanco was shot and killed on September 3, 2012. Fusako Shigenobu. In 1971, communist Fusako Shigenobu started a militant organization known as the Japanese Red Army. While living in the Middle East, Shigenobu hoped to overthrow Japanese institutions through the JRA. This organization proceeded to embark on a spree of terrorist activity, like hijacking airplanes, storming embassies, and committing the Lod Airport massacre.
It was the deadliest and most serious terror attack on an airport to date. It would have a major impact on airport security around the world.
In the latter attack, 26 were killed and a further 79 injured. Shigenobu was arrested in 2000 and accused of planning at least one of these terrorist attacks. The Red Army disbanded soon after. Shigenobu was sentenced to 20 years in prison and was released in May 2022.
Fusako Shigenobu apologised for her involvement in the terrorist organisation following her release on Saturday.
Minnie Dean.
Her legend haunts the province. In Southland, children are not threatened with the bogeyman, they are threatened with Minnie Dean.
Capital punishment is abolished in New Zealand. As a result, Minnie Dean was the only woman in the country's history to be executed for her alleged crimes. Like Amelia Dyer, Minnie Dean was a prominent baby farmer who was paid to adopt children. Many died or went missing under Dean's care, and while she was not found responsible, some people suspected that she was killing them. Her downfall came in 1895, when she was finally arrested for the death of Eva. Following this arrest, 3 bodies were found buried on Dean's property, including Eva's. One was found to have overdosed on laudanum, and Dean was found guilty of her death.
Minnie's lawyer Hanlon argued that the deaths were accidental, that Minnie had no motive, that she'd been forced to bury the bodies because she was operating illegally. There was no evidence, he said, that the children were ever mistreated.
She was subsequently hanged on August 12, 1895. Delphine LaLaurie. A prominent socialite from New Orleans, Delphine McCarty married physician Louis LaLaurie in 1825 and took her now infamous name.
They were worth a combined total of $4.3 million. In modern day equivalent, that's about $600 million.
She claimed property at 1140 Royal Street and lived in a mansion with her family and slaves. Rumors circulated that LaLaurie treated her slaves in a sadistic manner, and this was proven in 1834 when a fire was set at their house.
70-year-old woman, cook, chained to the stove by her ankle. I'm understanding she had nothing but a cot to sleep in and a bucket for her business, but...
The LaLaurie residents experienced violent backlash, after which LaLaurie fled the city in response, and various bodies were subsequently found on her property. Elizabeth Bathory. This Hungarian noblewoman was the subject of some malicious rumors. Young girls were sent to Bathory in order to learn proper etiquette, and some died while under her care. Following an investigation, Bathory and 4 accomplices were arrested on December 30th, 1610. Many people testified against Bathory, but most stories were based on rumor rather than verifiable fact.
She had a girl put into a cage, this is in her rooms in Vienna. It's a steel cage with kind of spikes, so they say.
It was claimed that Bathory tortured and killed more than 600 girls, but these numbers were never confirmed. She was eventually confined to her castle until her death. However, it's also important to note that Bathory may have been a victim of political machinations and therefore innocent of the crimes levied against her. The issue remains divisive and ambiguous.
Bathory's crimes were deemed so shocking at the time that a decision was made by the Hungarian establishment to bury the whole sordid affair.
Irma Grese. A young volunteer of the SS, Irma Grese acted as a guard at various Nazi concentration camps, including Auschwitz.
And she owed her infamous nicknames, the hyena of Auschwitz and the beautiful beast, to her cruelty and brutality.
Grese was known to have harassed the prisoners she was ordered to watch, and she routinely attacked the female prisoners with a whip. Grese also helped select the prisoners that would be sent to the gas chambers and ultimately executed. Following the war, Grese was convicted of war crimes and hanged. In the process, she became the youngest woman of the 20th century to be executed under British law. She was 22 years old.
During the trial, when the witnesses claimed that she was the worst SS woman in the camp, Grese responded that they were all lying and exaggerating.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Biljana Plavsic. Between 1996 and 1998, Biljana Plavsic acted as president of Republika Srpska. Shortly before the presidency, Plavsic played an integral role in the Bosnian War, which spanned from 1992 to 1995. During the war, Plavsic endorsed the violent targeting of non-Serbs.
Our leadership, of which I was a necessary part, led an effort which victimized countless innocent people.
It's believed that thousands of Bosnian Muslims and Croats were killed during the war, and a further million were forced out of the country. Plavsic was later indicted for her role in the exodus and charged with committing crimes against humanity. She pled guilty and was sentenced to 11 years in prison, but was released early on October 27, 2009.
The knowledge that I am responsible for such human suffering and for soiling the character of my people will always be with me.
Do you agree with this list? Are these the most evil women to ever exist? Let us know in the comments section.
Knight isn't giving anything away about what has happened.